If you want to get to the bottom of the Jeffrey Epstein case, you have to follow the money. Of course, a lot of that money is covered up or obscured. Unless the banks reveal it, we can't find out where it came from and where it went. But we do know who has the answers. JP Morgan Chase, for one. Shocker! I would have thought it'd be a mom and pop, Bert's local bank around the corner. Really? They weren't the ones perpetrating the billionaire sex trafficking? Are you sure it wasn't Aunt Louisa's savings and loan? I would have thought it was them. In the early 2000s, Epstein was on his way to becoming one of JP Morgan's most important clients. A 2003 internal report pegged his net worth at about $300 million. So what the hell did he do to amass that kind of money? A JP Morgan report at the time noted that Epstein's occupation was advising wealthy individuals like Les Wexner, the billionaire operator of brands like Victoria's Secret and The Limited, though bank documents at the time did not list any other clients. Oh, I see. Epstein made hundreds of millions by advising Les Wexner. Of course he did. Hey, Les, you're not going to wear those slacks with those loafers. Absolutely not. That'll be $2 million, please. If you're paying hundreds of millions to someone for advice, then the best money management advice they could give you is stop paying me. What are you, lunatic? Don't pay me. That will be great for you. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Wexner was paying for a little bit more than advice. In 2003, Epstein withdrew more than $175,000 in cash from his JP Morgan accounts, a huge haul, even for someone with millions at the bank. Yeah, even millionaires don't normally need $175,000 in cash. What are they, down at the arcade playing Dance Dance Revolution every night, all night? Yeah, I'd like to withdraw $100,000 in quarters, please. Just small bags. If you're paying that much in cash, it's because you don't want people to see where the money went. JP Morgan, of course, knew this at the time, 2003, but they didn't want to do anything about it, right? If they had acted on it, they might have saved dozens of women from being abused and assaulted by Epstein and his buddies. Outside investigators later found that Epstein paid almost that exact amount, $175,000, to women that year. You don't say! I thought he probably just gave all the money to the guy who painted his private island and only takes cash. But rather than back off the Epstein relationship, JP Morgan Chase doubled down. Soon it opened accounts not just for Epstein, but also for his companies, including one that handled the affairs of his private island, Little St. James in the U.S. Virgin Islands. The bank also provided financial backing for Epstein to help Jean-Luc Brunel, a French modeling scout who had been the subject of media reports about drugging and women. Jean-Luc Brunel would ultimately be prosecuted for and supposedly hang himself in prison, same as Epstein. Anyway, throughout all of this, JP Morgan Chase was riding on the back of Jeffrey Epstein's motorcycle, their hands lovingly clasped around his waists, just resting their head on his back. Just the two of us, building dungeons in the sky, just the two of us. To be more specific, Epstein's biggest fan inside JP Morgan was Jess Staley, the man most people thought would one day succeed Jamie Dimon as CEO. Staley and Epstein were like Laverne and Shirley. They were like Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin. They were like Stephen Miller and racism. Just a true bromance. Staley would hang out with Jeffrey and go to his properties like his ranch in New Mexico and the private island. In many of these cases, Staley would go to these properties even when Epstein wasn't there. Why would you travel thousands of miles to your friend's house when they aren't even there? Huh? Oh, maybe because there are other people at those locations. People like women of a certain age. I don't want to spell out what age, but let's just say they still had homework to do. What did JP Morgan get out of this deal, other than execs like Staley getting their winkies waxed? They got even more access to some of the richest people on the planet. In 2003, for example, Epstein introduced Staley to Sergey Brin, the co-founder of Google and one of the world's richest men. Staley later said in a deposition that a parade of other Epstein referrals, including Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, an Emirati billionaire, followed, though not all became clients. But then things started to heat up a little bit. In March 2005, the parents of a 14-year-old girl filed a complaint with the police in Palm Beach, Florida, alleging that Epstein had molested her. The police opened an investigation, and soon other teenage girls shared similar stories of abuse. Not to worry, thought J.P. Morgan. He's just a pedophile. It's not like he did something bad. Half our biggest clients are pedophiles. We're lousy with pedophiles. Can't toss a stone without hitting a pedophile around here. Not until Epstein was arrested and indicted in July 2006 on charges of soliciting prostitution from a teenage girl did J.P. Morgan start paying more attention. After discussing things with Staley, though, the team opted to keep Epstein as a client. In 2008, the situation again seemed to grow untenable. A parade of victims had sued Epstein for sexually abusing them. Then in June, Epstein pleaded guilty to soliciting sex from a minor and was sentenced to 18 months in the Palm Beach County Jail. This was the infamous sweetheart deal where he was allowed to go to prison when he felt like it, and go to work at his office during the day. I didn't even know that was a thing in the U.S. prisons. I didn't know there was a part-time prison anywhere in the United States. It's like they invented a new kind of prison just for this asshole. This is how much the rich own our system. Do you get it? Do you understand? Even when they're caught red-handed, hand in the cookie jar or hand in the girl named Cookie, they just reinvent the whole system to work for them. You have to go to prison, but the prison is it's inside a Ritz-Carlton, and the prison bars are they're actually just young women who are gonna make sure you stay in your bed at the prison, and the prison guards, they've all appeared in Maxim, and their uniform is a French maid outfit 6 sizes too small. So that's maximum security prison we've set up for you. Either way, Epstein was finally a felon and a sex offender. Do you think JP Morgan maybe noticed at that point? JP Morgan continued wiring money from his accounts to banks in Russia and Eastern Europe, where young women were being drawn into his sex trafficking network, according to sealed court records. Where was all this money coming from? Epstein's 9-figure fortune derived from multiple sources. Much originated with Wexner, the limited founder who, to the everlasting bafflement of his friends, granted Epstein power over his personal finances. Also, tens of millions of dollars poured in from another billionaire, Leon Black, a founder of the private equity firm Apollo Global Management. Black himself, a JP Morgan client, said the payments were for Epstein's advice about taxes and estate planning. Yeah, because the guy who runs a global asset management firm worth almost $1 trillion just can't manage his taxes. When it says dependents, does that include my Pomeranian named Fluffernutter? Does he go on, or is that more of a charitable donation? I can't, there's so many forms. I can't figure it out. I better pay a sexual predator millions of dollars to handle these. I'm getting a headache. I will not for a minute entertain the idea that Leon Black was paying Epstein to help secure young women for him to have sex with. I mean, look at that young stallion. You're telling me he had trouble getting backs on mattresses? I think not. You think 18-year-old fashion models ever said no to that? No way, good sir. Probably has to beat him back with a broom. He looks like a young Humphrey Bogart, he does. Too much pussy to count. I'm sure of it. Anyway, through all of this, the love affair between J.P. Morgan and Epstein continued. That March 2011, to the pleasant surprise of J.P. Morgan's investment bankers in Israel, they were granted an audience with Netanyahu. The bankers informed Staley, who forwarded their email to Epstein with a one-word message, "Thanks." But yeah, this doesn't lend any credence to the idea that Epstein was connected to Mossad. It's just he's buddies with Netanyahu and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. Next, Epstein somehow started a friendship with Bill Gates. Who knows what shared interests brought them together? Maybe it was pickleball. Maybe both enjoyed home gardening. Nothing like a sprig of fresh mint out the backyard, right? Right, Bill? Tough to know. But Epstein hoped to start a massive $100 billion philanthropy project with Bill Gates and J.P. Morgan Chase. In 2012, J.P. Morgan finally pushed Epstein to move his money out, which he did to Deutsche Bank, who apparently was more than happy to hold the hundreds of millions of dollars of a convicted sexual predator. They did it because they wanted to help a poor, almost billionaire, down on his luck. He just needed a friend, okay? It's a good thing Deutsche opened their heart to this financial orphan. After Epstein was arrested again and then suicided, J.P. Morgan thought they should maybe say something to the federal government. J.P. Morgan filed a report with federal regulators that retroactively flagged as suspicious some 4,700 Epstein transactions totaling more than $1.1 billion and including hundreds of millions of dollars in payments to Russian banks and young Eastern European women who were brought to the United States. Just in time they did that. They got that in just under the wire, just a few months after Epstein was murdered in prison. In 2023, J.P. Morgan paid $290 million to settle a lawsuit brought by roughly 200 of Epstein's victims. The payments were a rounding error for a company that raked in more than $50 billion in profits that year. No regulator took action against J.P. Morgan. No executives lost their jobs. Jamie Dimon remains one of the most powerful bankers in the world. Isn't it beautiful to be the ruling elite of our society? There's no accountability ever for anything. When they're doing the shit they're doing, usually they aren't caught. If they're caught, they usually aren't prosecuted. If they're prosecuted, they usually aren't punished. If they're punished, they're never put in prison. They just have to pay a fine. If they pay a fine, it's what they make in an afternoon. The clown show called America is run by criminals. And they try to gaslight all of us into thinking they are the upstanding citizens, doing everything right and being rewarded for it.